February 15, 1942, a date that marks one of the darkest chapters in Singapore's history. The fall of Singapore to the Japanese Imperial Army was swift and brutal, plunging the island into 3 years of terror and suffering. Before we start this historic journey, hit the subscribe button, guys. Join us as we uncover the harrowing story of the Japanese occupation of Singapore. Part 1, The Fall of Singapore. On February 15, 1942, after just 7 days of fierce fighting, British forces surrendered Singapore to the Japanese. This marked the beginning of a brutal occupation that would last until 1945. The British surrender was described by Winston Churchill as the worst disaster and largest capitulation in British military history. But the real nightmare for the residents of Singapore was only just beginning. Part 2, Life under Japanese Rule. Renamed Sionan II, meaning Light of the South, Singapore under Japanese rule was marked by widespread fear and oppression. The Japanese military sought to impose strict control over every aspect of life. Food and essential supplies became scarce, leading to severe hardships for the local population. The Japanese enforced a harsh rationing system, and many suffered from malnutrition and disease. However, the most terrifying aspect of the occupation was the systematic violence and atrocities committed by the Japanese forces. Part 3, Atrocities and the Suk Ching Massacre. One of the most notorious events was the Suk Ching Massacre. In February 1942, the Japanese launched a purge to eliminate those they considered anti-Japanese. Thousands of Chinese men were rounded up, and many were executed. Eyewitnesses recall the brutality of the Japanese soldiers. Survivor accounts describe being herded into trucks, taken to remote locations, and shot en masse. It is estimated that between 25,000 and 50,000 people were killed during the Suk Ching operation. But Suk Ching was not the only atrocity. The everyday life of Singaporeans was filled with constant fear and suffering. Part 4, Forced Labour and Prisoners of War Camps. Many Singaporeans and Allied prisoners of war, POWs, were subjected to forced labour. The Japanese implemented large-scale projects like the infamous Death Railway, where thousands of prisoners of war and local labourers perished under brutal conditions. Prisoners of war endured inhumane treatment, starvation, and diseases in overcrowded camps. Despite these conditions, many prisoners showed remarkable resilience and solidarity. As the war dragged on, the hope for liberation seemed distant, yet the spirit of resistance never died. Part 5, Resistance and Acts of Defiance. Despite the harsh regime, underground resistance movements emerged. Groups like Force 136, comprising local fighters and British agents, conducted sabotage and intelligence operations against the Japanese. Ordinary citizens also found ways to resist. Acts of defiance, no matter how small, were a testament to the enduring spirit of the people of Singapore. As the Allies turned the tide of war, the end of Japanese occupation drew near, bringing a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Part 6, The End of Occupation. In August 1945, the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki forced Japan to surrender, marking the end of World War II. On September 12, 1945, British forces returned to Singapore, liberating the island from Japanese control. The liberation was met with overwhelming relief and joy. However, the scars of occupation remained deep, with countless lives lost and many still grappling with the trauma. The Japanese occupation of Singapore was a period of immense suffering and resilience. It left an indelible mark on the island's history, shaping the collective memory of its people. In our next video, we will explore the post-war period and the road to recovery, from the end of the Japanese occupation to the liberation of Singapore by the Allied forces. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to follow our journey through Singapore's history. Watch CoinDon's numerous videos on world coinage and history. Happy watching!